Welcome to this edition of Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety. I am Kirk Webb, your host, and today on the show we have J.D. Pepper. We're going to talk about hunting and camping safety. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So how's life been treating you?
Probably pretty much just like everybody else's. 2020, this has kind of been a rough year.
A little crazy,
Yeah.
a little interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
So I understand, one, working with you through the fire district, so I know a little bit of your background, but why don't you give me some of your history of your career and your career path, where it's taken you, and some of the things you've done.
Well, I started out. I graduated from high school down in Mesa, and went off to the Army. I was in the artillery, so I did that for quite a while. Actually, in the reserve, I was there about 16 years. When I turned 21, I tested for the Mesa Police Department, and it was more of a dare. When I took the test, I wanted to be a firefighter. Like my dad was a firefighter in Tempe for 34 years, so I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. Growing up in the fire service, it was something I really enjoyed. But I took the test for the police department, and I got hired. So
that way you went.
I did. I
went to the dark side.
I went on the blue line, and
and that's okay. We appreciate your service, by the way.
Well, thanks. It was a good career. I worked for Mesa PD for 15 years. Sholo Chief of Police Joe Shelley. I was on the SWAT team with Joe, so I did that for quite a while, and then I had the opportunity to lateral transfer over to the Highway Patrol, Department of Public Safety, as a motorcycle officer and a trainee or a trainer. And so I did that for a couple years, and then moved up here and retired as an officer in 2012. At the same time, I was a reserve firefighter for Heber Overguard, and I got bored. I guess because I started so young. Right. And I thought, well, I'll test for Timber Mesa. Well, I actually became a Lakeside Fire Reserve as well. So I took the test. And got hired with Timber Mesa, one of the first 4 people to get hired there.
So that's awesome, and I know you kind of done some other things throughout your life, a lot of hunting and camping, and that's kind of the reason we wanted to bring you onto this show with us, because we're getting into that time camping's kind of been going on throughout the summer, and especially with this year, schools kind of got closed early, and so I think a lot of people started coming up, but the Forest Service had that campfire and charcoal ban where so. Correct. I think when people want to go camping, they like to have that campfire.
Sure. The ambience of the fire,
right?
Sitting around it, it's just something probably man has done since the invention of fire.
So caveman days, right?
Correct.
Since they figured out how to snap the rocks together and create fire. But and I know they've actually allowed, during the ban, they allowed those like the propane fired fake campfires. Yes. But that's kind of not the same thing, is it?
It's not the same thing. You don't you don't get the smell of the perfume wood, as some people call it.
Right. So I think camping kind of slowed up a little bit, but now Forest Service has rescinded that ban, and so I think we're going to see a lot more camping going on. Plus, it's that time of year that hunting starts to open up, and so
this month.
So, but let's talk a little bit about some of the things for camping safety, because I know we still have issues of one. How do you create a safe campfire? I think people kind of miss the boat on that.
So I've been a professional outdoor guide for about 21 years now. Actually, been 21. I'll be going on my 22nd this year, and making a safe campfire around where you're going to be camping is of utmost importance, especially in the desert Southwest. Whether you're up here in the mountains or whether you're down the Sonoran Desert, it's paramount to have a safe fire pit to put your fire, your logs and stuff like that in. making a big enough ring, usually a ring with rocks, and everybody knows, you've been out camping, you've seen the rings with the rocks and so forth. Make that high enough, but really the most important thing probably is to keep your fire a size that gives you warmth if you're going to be cooking with it, that you can cook off of. But in reality, having a great big bonfire in the especially the summer months is kind of
right, because we never know. Like the weather can change in a heartbeat up here. The winds can pick up. Yeah, and those winds are really what carries a lot of our forest fires and makes them so devastating. So
That's
yeah,
right.
and then I think people too have a tendency to forget to look up, because
sure.
you want your campfire underneath an overhanging branch, and especially if they do get a larger size campfire, which, getting into the bonfire size is never okay.
No, not the bonfires that you would typically see, like a school sporting event or something like that.
Right.
During the colder months when there's we've got the heavy snow conditions. I've been out in blizzard conditions and in hunting. We've had bigger fires. 3 foot tall, 4 foot tall type of thing, but probably nothing bigger than that. But
Right.
That's usually when we're surrounded by a lot of moisture. We're not really concerned about anything catching on fire.
Because fire can spread rapidly. So and then and I have done a little bit of camping with my own kids, and and keeping them, always use that 3 foot rule, even in the house. Anytime you're around any kind of heat source, 3 foot's a good rule of thumb to stay away from any kind of heat source. Same thing out camping.
It's a good distance.
Yeah. So playing around the campfire. I know we all like to do s'mores and things like that, but I don't know. I think people thinking that the flames is the best way to roast the marshmallow. It's actually some coals, right?
That's right. It's just the radiant heat from the fire is what does the best of the marshmallows. Lets you like charred marshmallows.
Yeah, no, and the black charcoal ones that catch on fire. Yeah, those are just wrong. Yeah. So if you like that kind, I'm sorry. You just
some people do.
Something's wrong with you. Okay, sorry. But yeah, just because I've seen videos and it catches on fire, and what do they automatically do? They freak out and
fling it somewhere else.
Yeah, and now doing that here, now you have a kind of marshmallow catch your tent, other things like that on fire. So little things that you may or may not think about can become devastating.
Sure. When you're out in the woods, whether you're in the Forest Lakes communities, Woods Canyon, Willow Springs, even kind of in that area there, when you're out in the woods, you're a long ways from any kind of help. So anything that happens out there can really be detrimental to your health and well-being.
Right.
So always try to make good decisions on whatever you're doing. Right.
And somebody getting burned, I mean, like you say, if you're a long ways out in the, getting medical attention can be, a long time before it gets there.
A long time before any medical personnel can get to you, and then package you up and transport you is even a longer distance. And sometimes, depending on weather, you'd have to go by air.
Right. And if it's got a storm going on, that's not going to be an option at that point.
Shutting down the air.
Yeah. So, and now when we get into talking about extinguishing a campfire, because that's where we've had several, every year it seems like we have some kind of fire somewhere in the nation. It's because of an unattended, or they didn't extinguish their campfire properly. And what are some of the basic rules for? So
if you're car camping, what I mean by that is, you're going into one of the approved campsites, or you're going to an area of the forest, and you're bringing your tent, your car, your truck, or whatever, RV. Always carry a shovel. Always carry at least a 5-gallon can of water, specifically just for the fire pit. So once you are going to leave, or you're not going to be with the fire, put it out, stir it up with the shovel, make sure that it's cool. If it's too hot to touch with your hand, the back of your hand is where you want to feel it. I'm not saying touch the fire, but feel it. If it's too warm, then it's too warm to leave.
Right, just like how we instruct kids when, doing a fire escape plan in the house and, checking the door with the back of your hand.
Right.
Because if that gets burned, you can still manipulate your hand, grab things, hold on to things.
We have a lot of nerves in the back of our hands here, so you can feel heat pretty well.
Right. So checking that, and if it's still warm even, if you still feel any kind of heat coming off, you got to do that process over again. Add more water, add more dirt, stir it up.
And then, when you finally leave and everything's cooled down, use some of the dirt that's free of debris, free of the pine needles and the oak leaves and stuff like that. And after it's cooled down, then cover it up. Then you're safe. That's really the safest bet. People get in a rush. Oh, we're gonna have to go home. And I poured some water out. I stirred it up, and they leave. Well, then the winds come through. And they dry it out. Some of the stuff blows off the ash blows off the top, and the coals are still hot.
Right.
Then they start blowing out of the fire pit itself and back into the foliage of the forest.
And I know I've seen some where they didn't let their fire die out, and the larger sticks and logs they put in there don't get consumed, and so but those embers can get trapped way inside that, and like you say, that wind picks it back up. So even breaking up the larger pieces and making sure that fire is dead out before you leave.
Correct.
So let's kind of talk a little bit about hunting. Now, when I was younger, I actually went out and did a little bit of archery hunting back when I was really young. But it's been so long, and I don't, and I don't think the rules have changed a lot, but I think there's a lot of things that, what's the deal with wearing orange for things like that?
So in Arizona, we're not required, or hunters are not required to wear hunter orange. It's just one of those things. In Arizona is she's her own state.
Right.
And I've been to other states, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, and where hunter orange is required. During the archery season, the hunter orange isn't that big of a deal, but during the gun seasons, it is required. But not here in Arizona. So
it's probably a good idea to.
So here this month is the start of our hunting seasons as far as archery is concerned. So.
Okay.
Archers typically they want to be more stealthy. They want to be camo. They want to be
Right, you got to get a little closer at this point.
Sure, you do. Absolutely. To make a fair and ethical shot on an animal with a bow and arrow, even with today's equipment, you need to be pretty close.
Right. Because I like how you brought up that fair and ethical. Because I think hunters in general. Are very environmentally conscious.
Sure. And
what they're doing it for, they're not, they're going out there. One, it supplies meat for their families and things like that. So, what are some of the other concepts along with hunting that you look for when you're like trying to teach somebody new how to properly go out and be safe hunting?
So. This started with my kids, and it was imposed upon me early at an early age from my grandfather that take care of the land, and the land will take care of you. Conservation of the animals is important. I believe that hunters are original conservationists. Everybody enjoys wildlife. Everybody from people that don't hunt. To people that do, bringing your family up to go camping, and everybody loves to see our elk and our deer and so on and so forth. So it's an important facet as the part of the conservation puzzle is to go out and hunt the animals. And again, not only that, but they provide the purest protein. I've been involved with agriculture and seen that side. I just to take a wild animal out of the wild to feed your family, to me, is a very basic instinct, very pure.
Well, and in fact, if I remember right, you were like a range deputy for a little bit, right?
I was.
And I know Game and Fish, they always look at what's the population of the wildlife herds out there. I think they also take into consideration of ranchers that have livestock and all that kind of thing, because everything, because the forested areas and areas where these animals are feeding, because what happens if they get overpopulated?
Sure. So overpopulation contributes to disease. It contributes to the loss of forage. If you look at way back in our history in Arizona, and I don't remember the exact years, and don't quote me on it, but I want to say somewhere around the 1920s, maybe 1930s, the North Kaibab, the Kaibab Plateau. Even today, it is still one of the most highly prized areas to go and hunt and camp by naturalists and by hunters and things like that from all over the United States, not just from Arizona.
Right.
But during that time frame, the mule deer herd got so big that we had a bad winter. And in Arizona, we can have bad winters. 2011, we had that one, 4 below zero in Heber.
Right.
We had a lot of snow, but the snow drifts, I believe, up on the Kaibab were 8 feet or higher, and the deer, there were so many deer. Even after they dropped low into the West Kanab Creek area, there was so much of their forage. And a deer is a forager instead of a grazer. So there's still areas down there where the trees had been, they won't grow lower to the ground because the deer literally had nothing to eat, and it killed off so many of them. So to kind of keep our herds in balance and to keep them from suffering such great loss, hunting is actually a tool to help do that. And game and fish is their job is to determine how many tags they put out in an area by doing aerial surveys, hunter surveys, getting out and looking at the browse and the forage and stuff like that. So it's a big process. It's not just a
right, and it's I mean, there's a lot of science behind all of that they're using, and like you say, they have to incorporate all of those different aspects of making sure that we maintain a healthy forest and open space areas.
If people want to find out more about the North American model of conservation, is what we follow in the United States as opposed to anywhere else in the world. And because of that, our herds of the ungulate populations, deer and elk and so on and so forth, have expanded so much and gotten so big that hunting is actually a tool that keeps those animals in check. And again, if it's done ethically, done in fair chase, and all the animal is used, it's a very, very good tool.
Right. And I know a lot of people hunt to not only for the meat, but to look for that kind of like that big prize or whatever you would call that.
Yep.
And there's some big trophies animals that come out of this area.
Oh, quite a few.
And it's kind of, I don't know, to me, not being a hunter, it's still kind of cool to see something like that happen. And I know just recently we've seen some areas of poaching going on, and I mean, that just kind of gives a really bad name to people that are trying to do it right.
It is theft from the people of Arizona.
Right, especially doing it just for the
notoriety.
Yeah. And wasteful and all of that. So let me ask you this: a new person, say, even because even young. Is there an age limit to when you can start hunting?
So big game in Arizona, you have to be 10 years old, and you have to have a hunter education. In order to start that hunting at 10 years old, for big game. For the small game, no, you kind of write off your parents or your guardian's license and go out and I believe that's true. It used to be. I don't have kids that young anymore, so
right.
But just to hunt small game and stuff like that. You can write off that license, but for big game, you have to have a tag and a license, and just like everybody else. But they do have youth hunts that that are available. They're very popular as well.
Right. So let's say even somebody that's a little kind of older in the years, like myself, never been hunting for a long time.
Yeah, you're not going to get a youth tag.
No, I'm kind of beyond the youth part. I know that. I need to find that fountain of youth. And
Don't we all?
Yeah, but is it a good idea for somebody that's wanting to get in this and that's a little older to still go and do those hunter education classes? And
absolutely. I have 8 children, all of them, but I think 2 are hunters right now, and just because my youngest daughter that I have at home right now, she just hasn't drawn a tag yet. So, so I've been to the hunter education class many times over my life, and I started when I was 14. I didn't start at 10. I started hunting when I was 14, as far as big game is concerned, and I took the hunter education class, and absolutely love it. It's very in depth, but it follows the core principles of hunter safety. Put on by the Arizona Game and Fish Department, some of their volunteers that teach it, and I think they do an excellent job.
So it's not only classroom, but you actually go out and do some shooting skills.
You have a field day at the end of the program. Yeah.
So it's regardless of how old a person might be, it's always a good idea to take those kinds of classes, get familiar, and if you're not only hunting in Arizona, you're going to other states, know before you go all the different rules according to that state.
Sure. So a lot of other states are reciprocal in nature that they require that you have a hunter safety card from your home state prior to being able to hunt in their state.
So and a lot of, in fact, how many of these? Is it still true that archery deer, you can just go buy a tag?
In Arizona, for certain units, you can go to Walmart, or you can go to Western Drug, or you can go to one of the sporting goods stores and buy, or to Game and Fish, and you can buy a hunting license and your tag for archery deer over the counter. But that's not all units in the state. Again, the Kaibab Plateau, right here in our area, 3A, 3C, those 2 units, you can't, that is a draw-only hunt. I believe Unit 1 is now a draw-only hunt. That's the Greer area, just east of here, starting in Vernon, in that area.
So it's kind of, you put in your name and a deposit and hope the lottery chooses you.
You hope.
and the way I understand it, there's a process if you don't get drawn after so many years and things like that.
Yeah, Arizona has a bonus point process. So for every year that you're not drawn for that particular species, you get a bonus point. If you've taken the hunter education class, you get a bonus point. And if you apply consecutively for the animal, you also get, or for species, you also get what they call a, I can't remember what that, but you get a bonus point for that too.
So, and then that helps you at some point, after so many points, then you automatically put in and you get that tag.
Well, I don't know if it's automatic at this point, because for like our species like bighorn sheep, even some of our elk hunts, or antelope. Antelope's one of the big ones here in Arizona. I've got a buddy of mine that has 25 bonus points, and he still has not drawn a tag.
Yeah. Now when we talk about going out and doing the hunt, and because you actually have to put in for specific ones, you can't just throw your name in and just get me to whichever one I want.
Correct.
So it's, when you put in your name, it's specific for that particular hunt, that particular area. Is there a big difference on knowing what type of gun to use for different, or can any gun be used for any kind of hunt?
No. So it's a myriad of tools to use to harvest an animal. For archery, for instance, I believe, and don't quote me on, I'm not too sure about it. Yeah, I believe it has to be, your bow has to have a draw weight of at least 45 pounds.
Right, because you want to make sure to be able to get a kill shot.
A clean, ethical shot on an animal, right? I mean, that's really what the name of the game is. But 45 pounds, I believe, is the lowest draw weight you can have on archery equipment, period, well, regardless of who you are.
Right.
And then it's just a really hunter preference on what type of a broadhead, what type of an arrow, that type of thing. I personally, as far as my guiding goes, there's certain things that I require that my hunter has in a toolbox, specifically for animals like elk.
Right.
It's my personal choice. I don't like expandable broadheads on elk. I like the fixed broadhead. And so on the archery side, there's so many things to plan for and to think about when you want to make that ethical shot on an animal and do right by that animal as well as bring it home to your family.
Right.
As far as rifles or even handguns, you want to make sure that the caliber that you're shooting is capable of a clean.
Know your equipment, because that not only is going to keep you safe, but and be aware of all the different dangers that are out there: bears and mountain lions, bobcats, all those. We have all that kind of stuff.
We do.
So, I know our time's kind of disappeared, and we're at the end of. But I'm sure there's probably a whole lot more that we could have covered. But I appreciate you being able to show up on the show with us and talk about some of these important items. And I don't know that I can stress enough that in almost any type of thing, know before you go. Know the area, and if you don't know the area, get a guide.
Always let somebody know where you're going. Always carry at least a GPS and your phone. Your phone is not going to work in some places here in many places out in the wild here in Arizona. But always carry a GPS. Make sure you have spare batteries. Make sure you have stuff to start a fire. Make sure you have a first aid kit. If you're archery hunting or even rifle hunting, carry a tourniquet in your pack, a space blanket, stuff to keep warm. Right. You can go from 100 degrees to 40 degrees at night here. Anybody that's spent any time in September has been forced to sleep in the woods in September without any type of shelter or blanket won't make that mistake again.
Right.
One way or the other.
Well, thank you, JD, for joining us on this show, and thank you for watching this edition of Safe and Sound, and we'll see you next month.